I am probably not going to have time to make videos during the trial because I'll be building my house, but I do have time right now to make a logical prediction. Boomer Bev might be buying it, but Lally's extraordinary and over-technical efforts to make excuses for the 2:27am search is only going to confuse the jury and possibly come across as deliberately misleading. Jackson, however, only has to show 2 timestamps, demonstrating the number of milliseconds that transpired when the focus shifted between 2 tabs. It's really very simple. The reason Jackson's simpler argument will prevail is because no matter which extraction method was used or which software was used, there's tons of them out there, Jackson's information comes from the session files, not the wall file or the write-ahead log, as Lally seems to think. This may well be a deliberate diversion tactic so that Lally goes off on a different tangent, and it sounds like a good strategy to me. Let me show you what I mean by the session files. Anyone who has developed a browser application will know what user session data is. Now, often when we are developing like a shopping cart, for example, we want to store things in a session data file called cookie. You all may well be familiar with cookies. There's other types of files though, and specifically I'm going to refer to those on iPad and iPhone devices. So the session data response object, as it's referred to in programming terms, stores the user browser session between opening a tab, everything you do in between, and then right up to swiping the tab closed. Here's a little demo on the settings of the iPad where you can control some of that recording activity of your device. Some sensitive data is redacted here, so that's why you'll see some black squares. But essentially what we're looking at is the settings in the iPad to find where this session data comes from and how you can enable and disable it. And the first place is in Siri search, and you'll see here Siri suggestions, and you've got suggestions in search and suggestions in lookup, suggestions in your lock screen. You can turn that on or off. Doesn't mean it's not going to record it, but this is how you can control some of it. There's also one in Safari with Siri suggestions, and if you read down below here it says allow information from Safari to appear in search, lookup, keyboard and lock screen. Siri may learn from and make suggestions based on how you use the Safari app. And so this is where your site suggestions or your search suggestions that pop down underneath Google come from. You can turn the Siri one off if you want, and then Safari will just use its own suggestions. You'll still get suggestions, but how it's recording, what it's recording might change a little bit. So let's move on to demonstrate now. We're going to do a search for who is a person, okay? We're going to say Amber. Who, and you can see here the Google's normal search suggestions come up, and then we get a little bit further into our search is, and then we start typing a name. We get the Siri knowledge suggestions at the top, and it thinks maybe you're looking for a name that starts with A. Most commonly searched on the internet right now is Amber Heard. It's probably not right now, but this is an old video. So as you continue through typing Amber, perhaps it's not Amber Heard you're after, perhaps it's Amber Tamblyn. So the further you type through the word, you'll get more suggestions from Siri and also from Google search. Even if you misspell the name, Siri and Google search will still try to correct your spelling and still try to guess what it is that you're searching for. I'm sure that none of this is new to you, but I just wanted to show you that if you change the settings from their default on settings in your iPhone or iPad, you can kind of adjust what's getting saved in the session files. Even if you go to a Google search page, you're still going to get suggestions from Google's own server. And that suggestion information is sent to the browser, and it depends on which browser you use as to how it's stored in the file. So now we'll go and have a look at the file and see what is stored in the file. Assuming you're using the Safari search bar, what is saved might look a little bit like this. So if you look down the left hand side, you can see session dot, I'm going to call it GUID, that's that long number in the middle, dot close. Now this is saying that all the tabs are closed. If you have one open and you leave it open and switch to another screen or another app, then that file will be called .open, session GUID .open. At the moment all the tabs are closed on this iPad, and you'll see that that file is selected, and what's written in that file is a whole bunch of blah blah blah. But when you look closer, you can actually see different patterns. You don't need to read the blah 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 and understand what it's all saying. You can see that there's some patterns in there that will help you sort of identify what's going on. Obviously, people who are experienced with forensic data extraction know exactly what they're looking at, and even if they don't, they know how to interpret it. We're not going to try to interpret it because it's way too complex. But what we can do is, say, for example, using the cache DB or the read ahead log, any number of sources, we can pull the GUID and then match it to one of the session file IDs. Now we'll do a search inside that file and we'll type who is Amber so you can see what was recorded. The find bar is down the bottom of the screen. Okay, who, and then we see there's a whole bunch of information stored just with that one word. Space is, and you can see it stored a whole bunch more information with just the space added, and then we type A for Amber, where we see even more information recorded, and the information it's recording are those suggestions. They might be a picture suggestion which came from Siri, or they might be a text suggestion that came from Safari browser or Google search. And then we type M, and we see that it even stored its look ahead suggestion of Amber Heard, even though we didn't type Amber Heard. We were looking for a different Amber, so the next letters that we typed were a space, T-A, because we were looking for Tamlin, and so on. It will even show where you've misspelled something. So essentially, you might find the breadcrumb in a cache database or the write-ahead log database, but you can verify the timestamp that it happened and every single letter that was typed in what order, including typos, by cross-referencing the GUID stored in the database, breadcrumb, and matching it with the session ID files. Now, let's just see what suggestions Google comes up with, just as an experiment on my Mac laptop. And you'll see that previous searches that I've made that match what I'm typing now are going to be first in the suggestion list. It's actually the browser that's reading those session files that I showed you previously. That's where my previous searches are stored on my laptop. And then as soon as I type something that doesn't match a previous search, it will then go to what are popular searches along those lines, and it'll try to guess ahead what I'm trying to search for. And then at the point where I tap an option, or on the laptop complete my search, we go to the Google search results. If you don't complete the search, you'll still get the session data that I just showed you, and then after you type the last letter, that's simply where it will leave off. You won't record anything else from that point. But as soon as you complete the search and go to a search result page, that's also stored in the session data. So a forensic expert can not just tell what you searched, and even if you use typos, but also what the first results are that you're going to see. And looky here, what are the first results? It says 50 to 60 degrees can cause death in 1 to 6 hours. Interesting. If you were in a hurry and you didn't read the rest of it, you would think that Oh, well, that's plenty of time. Surely someone's going to find him within, 1 to 6 hours. Anyway, I do digress. I just wanted to explain how Lally could possibly be led up the garden path, let's say, and how Jackson may well have found a bunch of other data from numerous other sources to corroborate a data fragment he may have found in a DB file or a WAL file, or a wall file if you prefer, where he may not be showing his whole hand in the arguments he's making pre-trial. Jackson and Yannetti may well be aware that everything they come up with in pre-trial motions, Lally is going to try to dispute during those pre-trial motions. And this is just one example where I think he might be able to pull a cat out of a hat. Unless someone was smarter and already got to those files and deleted them all before the files were sent over to the defence. And from what I hear from other people, there could well be some tech heads involved in this who knew to delete those files before they were handed over to the defence. I wonder who that could be.